Dear students, today we are going to see on the laws and rules of ecology. So we will be discussing on the different rules of ecology. For that we will be also seeing the principles of ecology. Normally we in the previous classes we have discussed about the ecology is a study of how organisms interact with one another and with their physical environment. That is how the biotic system interact with the abiotic system, as well as the interaction between the biotic systems. That is what is explained in the ecology. It's a very simple, with the two sentences we are explaining it, but it's a very complex thing. So to understand the rules of ecology, we should know what is the principles of ecology. So I'll be just discussing you on and the principles of ecology and then we'll go for the rules of ecology and the different laws proposed by different scientists. So when we see the principle, so normally the evolution is a key role in sustaining the ecological system, and to understand the biotic things, normally we biotic and abiotic factors in the ecological system. Sun is taken as the ultimate source of energy. That is the source of energy from which the different organisms get their food, and from there the food cycle starts. And the organisms are considered as the chemical machines. So in an ecosystem, each and every organisms are considered as a chemical machines that run on energy. So that is the that is another principle of understanding the ecology. Then coming to the next, then generally the chemical nutrient cycle are repeated while energy flows through the ecosystem. So normally during organisms are taken as a chemical machines, and chemical nutrient cycles are repeatedly flowing while the energy flows through an ecosystem. And then in an ecosystem organism interact, so it forms a web, interact to do things to each other in a way that influences abundance. The abundance of organisms depends upon the interaction, how they are sustaining, how they are stable in the ecosystem. So the ecosystem is considered as an organized web of interactions. So that is the thing. And human populations in the ecosystem is considered as a competent or has a very great role in competing with the other organism, using preying upon the organism and helping the other organisms. So normally human beings plays a major role in understanding the principle of organism, because we intervene with the ecosystems and altering it, and once altered cannot be revoked. So all these things we will be studying in the different rules and laws of ecology. So when we talk about the rules of ecology, the first person coming to our mind is the scientist. He is a biologist, American cellular biologist Barry Commoner. He's a college professor and later turned into a politician. So generally, the policy makers should have abundant knowledge in ecology or ecosystem to formulate the principles or the rules and laws for sustaining the ecosystem. So he actually this Dr. Barry Commoner was a leading ecologist, and he is among the founders of modern environmental movement. He was the director of the Center for Biology of Natural Systems and its critical genetic projects. So out of the from these projects, he was able to write a very classical book on ecology and ecosystem. The title of the book is The Closing Circle: Nature, Man and Technology. And in this book, he has discussed mostly on the environmental crisis and humans and nature's interactions on many different aspects of these ecosystems, and which includes the population and consumer demands, the growth of the population, politics, capitalism, the greed of the human beings, and other factors. So at the end, he has summed up that we have met the enemy. and he is us. That is what is a summary. That is, he has indirectly mentioned our enemy is we only. So we have to think twice before intervening with the ecosystem. So that is what he wanted to convey in the book, and he only proposed the different rules of ecology. He has made four statements in making us to understand the rules of ecology. One is everything is connected, everything must go somewhere, nature knows best, and there is no such things as a free lunch. So these are four important points are the major rules of ecology proposed by Barry Commoner. We will be discussing it elaborately in the next slide. The Barry Commoner has proposed four laws of ecology. He has proposed the first law. Mainly everything is connected. That is the important point to be discussed under the first law of ecology. And everything in this living in this world is connected to everything. So all are forming a web of interactions. There is one ecosphere for all living organisms, and what affects one will affect all. So in a web, if one organism or one system is affected, it will affect all other systems. So it should function harmoniously. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. So that is the first law of ecology. Second law revolves around there is no waste, there is zero waste or no waste, because everything is converted into another form. One form of energy is converted into another form. That is, everything must go somewhere. There is no waste in nature, and there is no away to which things can be thrown. Any waste produced in one ecological process is recycled in another. A care principle, the core principle for the circular, this is the core principle for circular economy. A circular economy entails the market that gives incentives to reusing products. So we nowadays concentrate on recycling, recyclable products, all degradable products. That are the things, that is the primary thing to be considered, that has been mentioned in the second law of ecology. There is a core principle for the circular economy where there is no waste. That is the third law is based on the nature knows best. So when we talk about the third law, I just recollect the Albert Einstein statement, look deep into nature and you will understand everything better. So nature will be the best teacher for us. And the third law proposed by Commoner is nature knows best, and humankind has fashioned technology to improve upon nature. But any human change in natural system says Commoner, is likely to be detrimental to the other system. So the thing is, any interventions in a natural system will have a detrimental effect over the other system. That is the thing. So normally nature knows best. We have to learn from nature. We have to go along with nature. Otherwise it will be a disaster. That is what is the third law of ecology states. And the fourth law of ecology is on no such thing as a free lunch. So that is a very important thing to be noted down. That is, exploitation of nature will always carry an ecological cost and will inevitably involve the conversion of resources from useful to useless. So that is his point. So these 4 points clearly mentions that how best we have to make use of the ecology in a sustainable and way to make it function harmoniously. Before Commoner's proposals on the different laws of ecology, many scientists like Sheldorf, Bergmans, and Allen and Goglas has given different definitions on the laws and rules of ecology. So first we will see Sheldorf's laws of tolerance. Sheldorf was an American zoologist. He's Victor Ernest Sheldorf, born in 1911. His law of tolerance is a principle developed to explain the minimum, maximum, and optimum environmental factors. He is the first person to explain about the tolerance limit of an ecological or an organism or an ecosystem, and the minimum and the maximum threshold levels, and optimum environmental factors wherein many species are abundant, and all these things. He has understood the concepts of ecology in a very thorough way, so that he has mentioned about the minimum, maximum, and optimal environmental factors, and combination of factors that determine the success of the survival of an ecosystem. According to the law of tolerance, population have optimal survival conditions within critical and minimal and maximal threshold levels. In a population, it is exposed to extremes. When a population is exposed to extremities, there will be a particular limiting factors that rates the survival of that particular species, and there will be some abundance as well as there will be some drop in the prevalence. So the distribution of the species in response to a limiting factor can be represented by bell-shaped curve. He has explained this as a tolerance limit, bell-shaped curve with three distinct regions. So these are the three distinct regions. The first region, which is the optimal zone, and that is the central portion. This is the optimal zone of the curve, which has a condition that favors maximal reproductive success and surveillance. That is survivability. That is what you call the optimal zone. Whereas the second is the stress zones of stress. These are the zones of stress, where the regions flanking to the optimal zone, where the organism can survive but with reduced reproductive success. So in the optimal zone, the reproductive success is enormous, so there will be exponential growth of the organism, whereas in the stress zone, the reproductive success is minimal, so the presence of particular organism is minimal. So under the stress, some wild things, that is very hardy genotypes, can survive, and the zones of intolerance, that is the third zone, wherein the outermost region in which the organism cannot survive, very extreme zone. So normally, which represent the extremes of the limiting factor. So organism cannot survive, no organism. So that is the tolerant limits explained by Sheldoff about the about the law of tolerance. So in the law of tolerance, Sheldoff has given an upper and lower threshold value on a gradient beyond which species cannot survive. So in this cartoonistic picture, it has been given the species which survived with the different environmental gradient, which adapts to the evolving environment. Like you can see the crow here, which is adapted to the modern or urbanized situations, also can survive, whereas the panda, which is under the red listed species, endangered species, which cannot survive in beyond a very larger environmental gradient. That is what is explained by here, and this follows the Sheldoff's law of tolerance. And the limiting factor he is explaining, Sheldoff explained this, that refers to the factors or the variables in an environment which is capable of limiting a process, such as the growth, abundance, and or distribution of a population of an organism in an ecosystem. Next, we will be seeing the Bergmans Rule. Based on the Bergmans Rules is an eco-geographic principle that states that within a broadly distributed taxonomic clade, the population and species of larger size are found in colder regions in an environment, or a species with smaller size found in a warmer region. So you can find that according to Bergmans Rule, the temperate or the colder regions will have a larger species, like polar bear, which is very larger in size among the bears, whereas the tropical bear, Asiatic black bear, is the smallest one. So he has explained that it is based on the eco-geographic principles, which is broadly distribution of the taxonomic clade is being decided. So Bergmans rule revolves around the adaptation of the endotherms, wherein the influence of temperature and the size is size dependent. So the temperature, you can see here the Arctic region, where the size of the penguins are larger. The size, the weight is, the mass nearly 40 kg, whereas there is in the Argentina, where when we move towards the equator, it is only 5 kg. And the smallest one is Galapagos Islands, wherein the penguin size is only 2 kg. So Bergmans rules the population or species of larger size are found in the colder regions or environments, and the species of smaller size are in the warmer regions. So that is how Bergmans has explained his rule on the presence of the distribution of species. Glauber's rule is based on the pigmentation and the living animals in the warmer region, living in warmer region and in the colder regions. Normally, his rule is based on the melanine pigment deposition. So, Glauber has mentioned in his rule that the warm-blooded animals, those living in warm and moist climate, develop more melanine pigment and darker than that of the animals present in the cold. So normally the pigmentation of the skin results from the accumulation of a melanine coating, and that is what we call melanosomes in the basal layer of the epidermis. And the differences in the skin pigmentation results both from the relative ratio of E-melanine, that is the brown-black condition, or pheomelanine, that is the yellow-red condition. So eumelanine is responsible for the dark colors in the skin, whereas or even in the eye and hair colors. And the pheomelanine is formed by the oxidation of 5-cis dopamine. It's a yellowish to red color found in red hairs, feathers, and freckles. And he has explained this phenomenon is a colder and dry region will have a less melanine deposition, and whereas warm and wet region has a heavy melanine deposition. And the complex version of this rule is being explained here. He has partitioned the melanine into eumelanine and pheomelanine deposition, and related to its colder and the warmer weather condition. So that is how Glauber's rule has been explained based on the pigmentation of the species. Allen's rule is based on the normally the length of the limbs. He has mentioned that in the colder region the length of the limbs in general will be little shorter when compared to that of the same species available in a warmer region. So Allen's rule is a biological rule posted by Joel Allen in 1877. It states that the endotherms from colder climates colder climates usually have shorter limbs or appendages. You can see it here. This Lepus arcticus, that is one species of the rabbit, which has got a very short limbs here in the colder region towards the Arctic region, whereas the equivalent animals in the warmer region will have a longer limbs, that is Lepus arini from this warmer region, southern part of this America, where you can find a longer limbs. So that is the explanation given in the Allen rules. So to consolidate from previous rules proposed by different authors, normally in a warmer area the surface area is larger in the animal surviving or the organism surviving with a small volume, and the surface area to volume ratio is high, with the heat loss will be faster in this warmer area, and which is suitable for hot or warmer climate. So that is the typical characteristic of a warmer organisms. Whereas in colder area, normally we will have a larger surface area. Surface area will be smaller, but volume of is larger, and the surface area to volume ratio is low, and heat loss is also slow and suitable. That type of organism adapts well to the colder climate. And it has been explained that is according to Bergmans and Allen's rule, in the organisms present in the colder region, humans present in the colder region that is Arctic region, people used to be little pygmy types, whereas the Sudanese, the taller human beings in the towards the equator, it is longer limbs, which is very taller and with longer limbs, they are explained. So this is about the different authors has explained in a different ways the rules of and the laws of ecosystems, different ecosystems. Here I am giving an assignment to the students or the listeners. So here are the three diagrams have been given with the different pigmentation and different limb length A, B, and C. You have to go through the lecture and find out the answer. Then you have to find out which person adapted for a cold climate and describe the trait which is developed in different regions of the ecosystem, and you have to find out which trait is related to Bergmans rules or Allen's rule. So this is the assignment of today's lecture. So in this lecture we have seen about Barry's Commoner laws of ecology. He proposed 4 laws. That was the very latest one based on the previous studies by different ecologists, and we have already seen the Sheldorf's law of tolerance, and then the Bergmans rule, which is based on the adaptations, and Glauger's rule based on pigmentations, and Allen's rule based on limb length. And also I have given an assignment on to know your understanding on this lecture. So thank you very much for your patient listening.